Welcome to the Good Divorce Show, where we can help you learn how to navigate the journey of divorce with less conflict, less debt, and equip you not to just get divorced, but also learn how to be divorced. Your host, certified divorce coach Karen McNenny, shares her wealth of knowledge, gets advice from other relationship experts, and interviews couples who learn how to have a good divorce, so you can too. Now here's your host, Karen.
Hello, I'm Karen McNenny, your good divorce coach. Hey, thanks for taking some time for yourself today. Whether you're thinking about divorce, you're on the other side of it, or maybe you're in the heat of it, this is the place to be to learn how to have a less destructive divorce journey. We need to be done with the dumpster fires of divorce. And I know it's hard. Oh my gosh, I've been there 14 years ago. And some days I think, gosh, divorce is the gift that just keeps on giving. We still have our struggles, but we have struggles like a couple would, a couple of parents, because that's what we are, and not struggles like we did when we were in a marriage that was not a good fit and was eroding and creating an environment for our kids that was not going to serve any of us well. So congratulations on the courage to open up this particular podcast episode, to take time to become more educated, whether you are in the beginning, middle, or end. Here is some philosophies that I think you can take with you and share with other friends. And by all means, please do take time, rate us, give us some feedback. That is going to help to spread this message so that we together can disrupt the industry of divorce as we know it. There is a mantra that has been running through my head now for a couple of months, and I've been spinning it around, thinking it might be my next TED Talk. And you can find the first one on YouTube. It was all about shopping cart behavior and what you do with your shopping carts and how that sort of thinking impacts society. So this particular idea really rests on this mantra. Divorce is not a weapon. I'm going to say it again. Divorce is not a weapon. It's a tool. It is a tool for good if we use it wisely. But more often than not, we fall into a system, a legal system that has trained professionals, lawyers, to advocate in an adversarial manner against big business, corporations, people who've been wronged, other lawyers. But why are we putting families in the crosshairs of a system that by its very nature is adversarial? Now, I know there are some of you who are listening and thinking, yeah, but I need an advocate, Karen, because I am currently married to someone who is dangerous psychologically, physically, emotionally, financially. I am not dismissing those circumstances. And there are times when you absolutely better call up a lawyer who is going to fight wildly on your behalf. But there's a lot of us standing around here in this marital journey just thinking, wrong fit, got married too fast. Maybe it was great in the beginning. And then you throw in a couple of kids, and maybe it's a job change, and maybe it's aging parents, and we've moved, and now we've got parents moved in with. And to be clear, I am pro-family, I am pro-marriage. But when those relationships begin to erode, can we please find a more dignified way to exit and actually have a divorce with dignity that isn't destructive? So let me test out a couple of thoughts with you today. 3 ways that I see divorce being used as a weapon. 1, I've already referenced. It takes 2 adults and automatically creates an adversarial relationship. As soon as you each call your own lawyer and you're standing on opposite ends of that table and you are ready to fight for assets, mind you, right? That's pretty much the main thing that goes on with lawyers in the conversation, is just how we're going to divide up all the things you own, all the stuff. Who's there to talk about how we're going to keep raising our kids together? Who's there to help guide our conversation with those kids? That's why the good divorce movement exists, because there is a lot more to this journey than just dividing your assets. That's the war part. And for most of us, there is a love story that is a part of this divorce story. It began with love. I hope for you that your marriage story began with love and that your children were born of love. So why would we suddenly take two parents who are going to have to continue to parent forever across two homes, through the arrival of grandbabies, through graduations, through all sorts of celebrations, funerals, marriages, not to indicate that funerals are celebrations, although maybe occasionally they are. What I'm saying is that your relationship is forever if you've entangled your DNA. So why we would go out and make it worse? You know, if you want to make your relationship worse, stay in a bad marriage. It's probably going to get worse. If you want to make it really terrible, go lawyer up and start a battle over something that might not even matter in 5 months, 5 years, 15 years. Because this is the long game, folks. This is not a one and done, flash in the pan, just get the paperwork turned in. It is the long game. If you share children, pull up a chair. Your marriage is done, not your relationship. Not your relationship. So that's why through the good divorce experience, we're trying to renovate your relationship, not destroy it. And I spend time doing counseling, co-parent counseling for couples that have come through really adversarial divorce experiences. And I'll tell you what, it is hard to get that train back on the track. So much damage has been done. Betrayals, woundedness, battles get started that neither parent really would have even considered a battle. But sometimes there is an incentive. Again, simply because the system that has been built, there is very little incentive in the system for lawyers to move your process along quickly and without much conflict. And I've heard it said, the bigger the battle, the bigger my paycheck. So it goes with some lawyers, not all. And a lot of lawyers out there are part of this good divorce movement, I'll tell you. And they are setting down their desire to go to court and litigate. They don't want to be a part of it anymore because they know family court is no place for a family. They're becoming mediators. They're becoming divorce coaches. They are working in a collaborative law process. They also want to see improvement. The second way that divorce gets weaponized is the sheer financial investment. I can't even call it an investment because you don't get any of that back. It's taking the money out and burning it up. And it does not have to be that expensive, $20,000, $30,000 per person. And debt, keep in mind, when we face our divorce, we are already becoming a two-household family and moving into a single income story. And I'm going to just address today those of us who divorce and probably have similar incomes, similar lifestyle, and we're not engaging in a more complex conversation today about child support, spousal support. But even with those things present, a lot of us are a one income earner as we enter into our divorce journey. And we might be bringing along a great big legal debt. Now, if indeed the point is to do what is in the best interest of the children, it is certainly not in the best interest of their children for their parents to be shackled with debt as they move into a single income household. That's going to affect the ability for those children to do extracurricular activities, to maybe have the kind of nourishment that we would want. Perhaps the family can't even afford anymore to keep the home that's been in the family. So why would we go through a process that weaponizes our financial stability and sets us back. That just doesn't make any good sense to me. And in the good divorce experience, I take a couple from the starting gate. That's where I really like to meet you. We've just decided to divorce, Karen. We've been talking about it. We've been not talking about it. We've been sitting in this truth, and now here we are. What's next? That's when I want you to call a coach. That's when I want you to call someone, a mental health professional, a coach, a divorce consultant like myself, to guide you through the process. Because we're going to start with a communications plan. How are you going to tell your kids and the circle of people around you and the circle of support around those kids? And we're going to start talking about the living arrangement and what needs to change immediately, what will change through the process of the decree, all of those things long before we call a neutral lawyer. And that's right. Lawyers can come on the scene in the journey of the good divorce experience, and they just show up as a neutral party to educate and inform what the state laws are specific to where you're living, and to do the legal documentation, get the right papers filed, work through often the mediation process that I'm completing with you, open the case with the child support services if that is needed, help with calculations. And we typically, me and my families, meet with a lawyer 3 to 5 times, and that's it. And it has always been under $10,000, sometimes under $5,000, because you actually don't have to go spend a lot of money on the legal part to get to the other side of divorce. So let's stop weaponizing the financial part of divorce, which is just setting families back who are already dividing assets, income, and their ability to stand on their own, which is what we want. We want both parents to be able to really financially stand on their own. Third way that divorce is getting weaponized in our culture really is when it's living inside the legal process that is focused on finances rather than family. This is a huge disregard to the children. And I, again, have heard it said, a lawyer who has turned to a mental health professional and said, the kids, I don't work for the kids. I work for my client, and my client is to get the most money, the most assets. It's to win on behalf of my client. And when that battle is going on, I'll tell you who's losing. The kids. Because as soon as children have two parents who are adversaries to each other, who have lost respect and compassion and the ability to forgive and have done so much damage to those parent relationships, trust me, those kids are going to suffer. And again, in the good divorce experience, we always focus on family before finances. My preference is to get your parenting plan written before we meet with that lawyer and start to divide your assets. Before that limbic part of our brain, that emotional hijacking that is telling us about there's not enough in the world, that scarcity urge that turns everything into a land grab. And it's my belief that if you do the land grab of assets and money first, that carries over into the land grab around children. Because now we've got one more place where I'm going to win and you're going to lose. And that's why I want every Christmas. And that's why I want 80% of the time. And that's why they're never going to see you and and we double down at the expense of the children. Because when we have two healthy, stable parents, and I am clarifying that, because again, some parents are underskilled in their parenting, or maybe even dangerous to their kids. That's not who I'm talking about today. You know who you are, you normal neurotics who are raising your kids. And it's an area that most of the time you really agree on things. And probably you're already living separately or in separate bedrooms, pretending to be married for the sake of the kids. Well, just keep doing that. You're just going to do it across two homes. Now you don't have to pretend, which is exhausting. Oh, it's so exhausting to be living a false identity. So, what we want is to stop weaponizing the children through the process of divorce and actually put them in the front seat and focus on family and parenting first. And then, yeah, we've got some dollars and cents that we need to divide. Let's do it in a way so that both of us are doing well. I always think of the division of assets like a teeter totter, and we just, kind of want that to be balanced at the end. And it moves and shakes a little bit, but we don't want someone way up and someone way down. And for those of you who might be listening to me today and thinking, this sounds impossible. Well, it's a mindset change. And it is absolutely possible. I do it with families all the time. And it's just such a delight. And some of the most rewarding work I have done is to walk alongside families. And, I refer to it as divorce school. We're going to go to divorce school together, and I'm going to teach you how to be a high functioning, thriving, joy filled family that lives across two homes. That is one of the options. It's a possibility. But most of us don't, A, know that it's an option, or B, we certainly don't know how to get there. And good golly, if the legal system gets to you first, it is a lot harder to come back from the brink of an adversarial exchange with someone who you loved and that those children came from love. So let's protect some of that as we renovate the family. So let's move on to the more encouraging part, which is how we can use divorce, not as a weapon. Here I am. You can hear my notes because I'm writing and thinking a lot these days. It is really important that we get this message out into the larger public. So a tool. Consider this. Divorce exists to actually help improve the primary relationship between parents. Okay, what if we looked at divorce? Hey, honey, I think we should consider divorce. We should at least maybe we should talk about it. We should learn a little bit more about it because maybe it would actually help us to parent better, which is our primary responsibility as a couple right now. And just because you're talking about divorce, just because you're listening to the Good Divorce Show today, that does not mean you're going to get divorced. But we put our heads so deep into the sandbox that suddenly, when it does happen, it is a life shock that rattles our world. We don't know what to do. We haven't done any research when really we should be doing it before we even get married so that we fully understand the contract that we are taking on with this person. And if by chance it were to unravel, we would actually know how to do that better. I think of this might be part of the TED Talk. Like when we get on a plane, every time I fly, one of the first things that our airline professionals do for us is to tell us what to do in case there's trouble. If we lose an engine, if we run into a flock of birds, if we're headed for the water, here's everything you should know. And how to save yourself, how to save the person next to you, and how to come out of this alive. Now, that isn't, I don't know, most people, they just keep reading their magazine or talking to their friend, but we know they're going to tell us about it. And just because they're telling us about it doesn't mean it's going to happen. And we don't think that they're really pessimistic. Like, why do they keep telling us what to do if this plane goes down? Do they think the plane's going down? Why do they always start with this negativity? No. They are telling us, if there is trouble, we want you to be safe. Yeah, maybe everyone who's getting married should actually listen to this episode of the Good Divorce Show. Not because we think you're going to get divorced, because if there's trouble, we want you to know how to navigate it so you can come out the other side. And maybe if we were more transparent in that conversation, then when people were having trouble in their relationships, we could approach that conversation with greater consciousness and intent rather than, again, a threat, because that's usually when divorce shows up in a relationship, is it sounds like a threat. I've heard it. I've probably said it. I've been around other couples, girlfriends who tell me, boyfriends who tell me, yeah, the D word came up and that wasn't popular. That didn't go well. So stop the threats, no weaponizing. Let's look at divorce as a way to improve the primary relationship by removing some of the undeniable struggle and often incompatibilities that exist in that couple. And again, fight for your marriage. Get into couples counseling, get into individual counseling. Surround yourself by other couples who are doing it well. Talk to them. Have mentors. Elevate your own knowledge about your relationship and yourself. And as you fight for your marriage, should you come to the truth that it's going to dissolve, then I also encourage you to fight for a good divorce, which is kind of counterintuitive and probably a little more challenging because your heart might feel shredded and we're going through a grief process on so many levels. Here's another way that we can use divorce as a tool for good, which really is about the children. And I am quite familiar with the mantra, stay for the kids, stay for the kids. I just have to stay there. It doesn't matter how miserable I am. It's going to be better for the kids to be here. It's going to just be better. Oh my gosh. I was there until I realized I think I need to leave for my children, like for the goodness of my children. How many conversations I have with couples who have stayed 10 years, 20 years, and they recognize the damage that has done to their children. And sometimes it's because there's a very high conflict, toxic relationship. Lots of yelling, lots of door slamming, lots of belittling and disrespect. Oh, we know that environment is more dangerous to a child's psyche and their mental health than actually just having divorced parents who live across two homes where they are not surrounded by that kind of high conflict toxicity. So removing children from that kind of environment, that seems obvious. The ones that might be a little more subtle, a little less obvious, is the ambivalent marriage, or which probably goes along with absence of affection. For some couples, when the fight is gone, that very well may be your sign. There isn't anything to fight for anymore. I don't even have, it's not even worth it. And then we have two parents who kind of go to their corners. And sometimes that is roommates. Maybe they're still sharing a bedroom or not, which I don't think is a requirement of a great marriage. I've recently met someone and she said, I love my marriage. We have a great marriage, but we're bedroom divorced, which isn't to mean they don't have their intimate time. But when it comes to sleeping, they have really different sleeping habits. And sleep is a nutrient. Sleep hygiene is really important. So the value, not as a judgment, but there might be value. Maybe this is the thing you're hearing today. Like, oh, maybe if we just get different bedrooms, not as a threat to the marriage, but as a way to improve the marriage. And sometimes we just need our space to move out. We need our own random thoughts. We need our own dream space. Maybe that's a solution for your marriage. But sometimes the 2-bedroom is the sign that the heart has left. And we end up with a relationship that is ambivalent and non-affectionate. Those apathetic relationships might not be doing your children any good. I was recently in a conversation with an adult child of divorce. Oh no, actually her parents weren't divorced. This was kind of the interesting twist of the story, is that she was talking about wishing her parents had divorced. That was the point of it. And they've been married 60 years. They've been roommates for 30 of those. And she said, I can probably count on one hand the number of times my parents have held hands. Very rare to see any close affection, which again is not a requirement. But if it's the absence of it because it's an absence of heart and respect and delight, just know that's the model you're creating for your children. This is what a marriage looks like. This is what a loving relationship looks like and sounds like. So we have the extreme of the toxic, hostile, loud, angry, telling your kids, this is how relationship is done. This is what marriage looks like. And then that whole spectrum of possibilities over to this other one, which is they don't do things together. They don't really like each other. It seems like they just tolerate themselves. I wish they would just get divorced. You're also sending a message. This is what love looks like. This is how relationships are. And basically stating, I hope my kids grow up and have a marriage just like mine. So if it's eroding, then you have the possibility again of leveraging divorce as a tool and to remove your kids from either of those environments as well as yourself. But in terms of the children, they can now see joy in their parents, maybe because they're no longer living with their former spouse. They hopefully will see you move on in your life into a loving relationship, not a rinse and repeat. My gosh, please take time between your divorce and your next relationships. Get a therapist if you can. Work out what you did in the first round that you don't want to repeat in the second round or the third or the fourth. I remember a really specific moment after my divorce. And Michael and I were living in two homes, and it was late night, past bedtime, Saturday night. Everyone was in their jammies and we all wanted a snack before we snuggled in to read Harry Potter, which was our evening routine. So I made a bunch of nachos, which I always love making nachos. And there we were having late night nachos, and we were laughing, and the kids were young. They were sitting on the counter. We just goofing off. I can't even remember what we would have been talking about. And my kids are lighthearted and fun and joyful individuals. And I was just giggling along with them. And at one moment, my sweet daughter looked at me and she took my little cheeks in her hands and she just squeezed me. She said, "Oh, Mama, you're just so happy. I love it when you're so happy." And it did almost bring her to tears. And in that moment, I realized how notable it was to her because I had become an unhappy mama. That does not serve my children. It does not serve your children. And following that moment, I had my own little heartbreak inside because I wished more than anything that I really could have been that happy inside our marriage. I wished that we had been more compatible so that we could have had the long journey as an intact family in one home. I wanted that more than anything. We all do when we sign up for marriage. When we get on the plane, we want it to take us to the desired location and land the plane safely. Tell you what, the aviation industry has way better statistics than those of us getting married. So if there's trouble, let's find a way to exit it. Which brings me to the third way that we can really use divorce as a tool if we find ourselves at that threshold, which was, again, back in that moment of nighttime nachos, late night nachos. I was also released to become my most joyful self that was shrinking, being eclipsed, being oppressed. Pick your adjective. I was not living as the best version of myself. And my spouse at the time, the father of my children, our children, he doesn't get all the blame or all the credit for what was going on in that household. We both do. I was recently spending some time with Catherine Woodward Thomas in her book, Conscious Uncoupling. And one of the things that she really highlights is our accountability to what was going on inside the marriage. And even if you're so in a state of mind of blame, 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 victim, 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 they did and they didn't and they should have and how come and it's all about them and I've just been run and through the ringer. Okay, let's go with that. I don't recommend it, but let's go with that for a moment. And let's say that they get 97% of the credit of what went wrong and the demise of this marriage. That still leaves you with 3%, folks. I'm no mathematician, but you still got 3% on your side of the ledger. And when we start to take back our 3% and we own that, it actually is freedom. Don't be the victim. Don't give away your power. Don't give them all the credit or the blame. And so this was the tool for me in that moment through divorce, that as my daughter saw me light up in a way that she hadn't seen recently, I also knew I was becoming a happier, more full person. And the other thing that kind of stung is I could see that their dad was also becoming a happier, more full person. And it was a heartbreak, not because I wanted our marriage back or I thought that it could be better or different, because it was just one more little death by 1,000 paper cuts in the journey of divorce, of realizing we could no longer grow in the garden together. What do gardeners, they talk about the pH level of the soil. And it just became clear that we needed a different environment, habitat, pH in the soil so that we could grow, continue to grow through our whole adult life and as parents, and to be able to become the best versions of ourselves, not in spite of each other, but in a garden that had a greater variety where we each could grow autonomously. And I know that we're both happier people. And we've had beautiful relationships along the way. And our kids have seen a new model of love. They have seen their two parents in joy. And they don't have to be in an environment where parents are pretending, which just makes kids then feel like, not that it's their fault, but it's kind of like they're held responsible. My parents are only together because of me. They're here because they have to do it for me and my siblings. And parents who wait until high school or post-college to divorce, I've heard a number of those young adult kids say, I wish they would have done it sooner. We would have put us all out of our misery. We were miserable in that house. Why are they waiting around? And now they're giving me all the blame and credit. Well, we waited for the kids. We wanted you to get out of high school. Like, it's a very interesting, ironic twist that then those kids feel like, I wish you wouldn't have done it for me. I didn't ask you to. I don't want the credit or the blame for that. That's on you, parents. That's on you. And if you can be an intact relationship that's modeling good relationship skills and love and joy and delight, then stay in that household with your children. But when it starts to become toxic, hostile, ambivalent, devoid of affection, disrespectful, contempt, all the things. If you want to know more about some of the things, I actually should talk with you about this sometime. It's the four horsemen of the apocalypse that the Gottman Institute, which is one of our foremost research centers on relationships, and contempt is the one that's really going to get you. And when contempt starts to show up, just it poisons everything, and it is the number one determiner that marriage is going to fail. So use the tool, folks. Not divorce as a threat, not divorce as a weapon. And Yes, resist divorce for as long as it makes sense. Work on the relationship. Dive in. Again, find a therapist for yourself. Find a couples counselor. We have so many more choices now with online support. It's one of the gifts of the pandemic is we realize we can do so much more and connect in deep ways, even with people who aren't in the same room with us. Just like I'm connecting with you today. Thank you for spending time listening to these words. Thank you for investing in yourself and your family to consider another pathway through divorce. One that hopefully when you look back, you can say, yeah, we had a good divorce. Not that divorce is good, but we can do it well. Pop on over to my website, thegooddivorcecoach.com, where you can sign up for your free hour discovery call. Even if you're not talking to your spouse yet, you can talk to me. We can talk about divorce, even if we're not going to get divorced. So come on over, have a conversation. Let's explore what might be the right path for you before you get on the wrong path. And remember, everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
Thanks for listening. Do you have questions or thoughts about this week's episode? Let us know by following the Good Divorce Coach on Facebook and Instagram at Good Divorce Coach, and leave a comment. And be sure to tune in every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific or listen anytime wherever you get your podcasts.